Ultimately, SalesRobot is just an amplification tool. You have the core message and it's amplifying it to 1,000 people.
Probably my favorite thing about SalesRobot is it does all the things I wouldn't naturally do, and it forces me to do them.
At the end of the day, there's somebody on the other end of the screen on LinkedIn looking at it. They're a person as well, just like you. Just talk to them.
The one deliberate tactic I guess we were using was not to try and sell.
What are some of the mistakes you made when you first started doing cold outreach?
And I think the first mistake I made was...
Hello everyone and welcome to SalesRobot Customer of the Week, a new show where we interview the best SalesRobot customers and go deep into their tactics. We study tactics like targeting, messaging, and personalization so that you can take away some tactics and implement them in your cold outreach starting tomorrow. Today on the show, we have Tom from Decision Crew. Welcome to the show, Tom.
Thank you, Saurabh. Appreciate being here.
Awesome. So we can get right into it. What does your business do and how do you make money?
Well, we make money through data and analytics. So we're a consultancy business, but I would say a business that really tries to create value for customers. So it's not just about the data and analytics, but how we can automate anything that customers do and really trying to use data as a strategic asset for their businesses. So that can range from doing work in Power Apps or Power BI, like dashboarding, or whether it's automating business processes, anything along those lines, and where the company to call.
Awesome. What kind of customers do you work with? Like, do you have a vertical where you specialize, or who are you?
No. Yeah, they can vary quite a lot. We have almost in any industry, anyone needs data these days, right? So you could be a yoga studio, which is one of our clients. We currently have someone in the fashion industry, but we've had people in energy and then in finance and insurance. So it really varies. Ultimately, what it is about is anyone who needs data to make decisions, and then I would say anyone who finds themselves in Excel hell, so who's stuck in maintaining spreadsheets and it's becoming too complicated and they've got all these sort of VLOOKUPs and emails going on, that's probably a time when we need to step in.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, Excel is not a great tool once you get to that scale and once you get to those complex, queries that you want to run. Awesome. So I'll not bury the lead. We can get directly into the campaign that got you on this podcast. So do you remember what that campaign was about? I believe it was called Old/Visitors.
Yeah, I think there was to be honest, there was one campaign we ran. We went to a conference and we wanted to reach out. We happened to have a list of people that we know were at the conference before, and we wanted to set up meetings. So rather than go the traditional route of looking through an app and searching for people and manually inviting them, we thought we'd be a bit smarter and use SalesRobot for that. And we probably have one or two other campaigns we can chat about as well that I thought went really well. But yeah, if you want to chat more about this particular one, we can.
Yeah, we'll cover this very briefly and then we'll go into the other campaigns that showed your strategy in a little bit more detail. Awesome. So I'll just share my screen and first show everybody the stats. Awesome. So yeah, I think it's loading, but we can still see what's happening here. I think you ran it about 7 months ago. You had roughly a 40% acceptance rate, 86 people That's accepting, right. And almost a 41% response rate. So pretty good stats.
Yeah, I think that's what I've become accustomed to. And on this particular one, someone was helping me set it up. I had a lead generator working with me, and he was initially getting something like 20% responses. And I told him I've used SalesRobot before and I was getting 40, 50. So I'm expecting to get much better responses than that. And we tweaked it. And I think that's when we upped the rates afterwards. And what I particularly like for anyone who's watching and then uses the tool as well, or would like to use the tool, you really should know from writing your message, you get a good indication if this is likely to receive a response or not. And I think that helps us a lot in the process of creating this one.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was just thinking, for the lead generation guy, it won't be easy working with you because you're a data analytics guy, so you'll look at the data.
Yeah, I think I'm generally not an easy taskmaster, and I think the data part just makes it even more difficult, I think.
Awesome. All right. So this is the campaign. We can just go look at the copy. Yeah. So you viewed their profile and then this is the connection request. Yep.
Yeah. So, and this is what I meant as well in terms of the chances of a response. So we're looking for something that shows a high probability of response when we write this. And we do pay attention to these bars on the right. So how readable it is, if there's spam words or things like that, if it's personalized enough. Maybe the personalization is the one thing we care a little bit less about, because you can over personalize or make it can almost become obvious that it's not real. So you have to balance that one. So, it's a really great guide for trying to direct people to respond to you, and then in the follow-up we do the same thing. But for us, this has worked quite well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think I really like these, the readability in particular that you have, because these days people don't read, they skim, right? And when you're skimming, you know you're spending like half a second maybe on the message, so they need to get that sense, and that's why the this scoring mechanism is so important, because then you don't forget that they're only paying half a second of attention to your message, so you need to get your point across quickly.
Yeah, no, yeah, I think it's exactly that. Is that sort of the intro, very quick to the point, so people know why you're writing. And honestly, I wouldn't say we are experts at doing this. So we need tools like this to help us see what we're doing right and what we're doing wrong. I think I forget the name of the tool, but there was an email scoring tool we were also using in the past to help us detect whether the email is well written or not. When you use these little guides, you realize, oh, you're too verbose. You're going on too long. You need to keep it shorter, or especially the formatting, like you pointed out. I think like single lines really help for the readability, and that's what's, I think, working here. So it's quick and to the point.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think the tool you mentioned is called Lavender. I love them as well.
Oh yeah, that's right. Lavender, you got it.
Beautiful. And like in the software business, we all copy each other, so honestly, this is something that was inspired by Lavender, but we'll do a better job of copying them, because I think they're doing a phenomenal job. So in software,
Yeah.
it's well known. If
No,
something
no, you're right on the money. And I hadn't used that tool, and sort of stumbled upon it through LinkedIn posts that people were writing, and I used it, and I realized how many. I'm probably doing this while we're speaking as well. You say so much more than you need to say, and tools like that just points out to you where you could really just be more concise and be more crisp. And we sometimes use the two in combination, actually. So a little bit check the score over there, and then try to write something in here too.
Awesome. So yeah, I mean, this campaign clearly worked for you, and then this is the final one where you just you ask them to meet, right?
Yeah, and it did work for us. So I went over there. This was in Finland. Then we went to a conference, and we got our meetings set up, or at least we got our responses in terms of whether people could meet or couldn't meet. And a lot of that's driven by practicality rather than anything else. And that's really worked for us. But then there were other campaigns that I'd actually say are more valuable, because this was a short-term one. This one was for the conference. When the conference is done, we don't necessarily pay attention to these leads anymore. But some of the other ones I really liked was around growing my LinkedIn profile. And if I can say a few words around that one.
Sure, go ahead. Was it this one, by the way, expansion phase 2, or no?
I think phase 2 was literally the second part of the same campaign. So we did a first phase and then a second phase. I don't know if you've got that one on here, but because it was a bit further back, it was some time ago.
Yeah, I don't think it's there. I think you archived maybe or deleted it.
Yeah, I did. I think I archived it. But essentially, it's the same idea as this expansion phase 2. What I did was, at the time, I think I had about 1,000 followers on LinkedIn. I wanted to use my brand as a founder to be able to post but reach more people. So I didn't necessarily have a campaign strategy to say I want to try and sell something or try to sort of get people to respond. But what I did want people to do is to connect, so that I could grow my count. So whenever I do a post, that I know that there's a bigger audience today. And honestly, I can truly thank you for this. I've now got just over 5,000 followers on LinkedIn, and I've not actually run this campaign again, so I should react it, because it finished, and I should reactivate it. And if I can give any tips to anyone, but what I did was I looked on Sales Navigator for particularly secondary degree connections. And so I think the process starts really there, is to find a good list of people to contact. And I wanted to connect with anyone who was either in the Netherlands, the UK, or maybe the Nordics that were also at a CEO or founder level. And I wanted to expand that network. So I got a list like that from Sales Navigator. I imported it into here. And then essentially I would say and it had to be second degree connections. So someone that knows someone that I know. And you'd be amazed how quickly that group grows once you connect with founders, because then they obviously know someone that you might not yet know. So I could then campaign to that list and saying, hey, we're both founders, we both know someone, and we have someone in common, let's connect and be in touch. And that worked really well. I think even though the chances of response wasn't as high as we had with the Slush one, I think in terms of actual connections that we got, it was, I would say, roughly about 50%. So about 50% of the people that I send the messages to connect. And I still, to this day, sometimes get someone who hasn't read a message in like half a year or a year and then connects with me on LinkedIn. And yeah, now that I have the 5K, I'm probably need to do a phase 3 and run this again sometime.
No, that's awesome. I think the biggest learning in here is actually the second degree tactic. That's what I feel is very, very relevant, because what happens is, like, you have to almost think of it as a graph network. Like LinkedIn is essentially a graph network. So if you have a set of people that you really want to get connected to, the first 100 or 200 is the hardest, right? Because once you reach out to more people in that network, it's more of a close knit one. So the second degree network that you have actually grows exponentially, right? Because if you connect with one person, their entire network opens up.
Exactly.
Actually math, right? Through which you're actually expanding your network very strategically. I love that tactic.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And people just feel a lot more comfortable with the idea that they're connecting with someone who knows someone they know. So I think from a personal perspective, the one deliberate tactic I guess we were using was not to try and sell. So we were deliberately saying, we don't yet know why we might need this network, but in the future this will be valuable. So let's start building now, and let's start reaching out to people, expanding the base. And sometimes I get people responding to me or following me or getting in touch with some questions because they're now in that network that I don't even know truly who they are. So I think that way, I would personally say that's probably my favorite thing about SalesRobot is it does all the things I wouldn't naturally do, and it forces me to do them. So expanding your network, for example, and meeting strangers, and that's a hard thing to do. But also silly things like wishing someone a happy birthday or congratulations with your new promotion. There are hundreds of people who have these and you don't always take the time to do it. But because it does that on your behalf, I have people saying thank you and we appreciate it. How are you? And conversations can naturally sort of start from that point. So I really think it's like being the more social version of me, automated. So that's what I like about it.
I love that take. Because it's essentially, in a way, pushing you out of your comfort zone as well, right? Where you're just, being more out there, and that obviously leads to business, right? Because they see you more. No, I love the other part that you're saying as well, the whole networking, not selling. And you have to give yourself credit as a salesperson, because, the best way to sell is to not sell, right? Is just to go in, have a genuine conversation. And if there is a need, or if they are, if there's something that they need, like, they'll reach out to you. A lot of time it becomes like a inbound lead magnet. You just need to be there. You just need to be there as one of the options in their mind once they're thinking about data.
Coincidentally, I was watching a YouTube video yesterday. I think it was Reid Hoffman from LinkedIn that said he was being interviewed, and one of the tips he gave the person they was talking to, he said that businesses are bought, not sold.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Yes, you saw that? Yeah. So I really like that, because I think it's the same with sales itself. And in a way, it's a lot more natural for people to just converse and then to be in a space where someone might need them. And it's a lot easier to build trust that way. And I would say one thing I'm conscious of is I get a lot of emails where people straight away go, they want to sell me something, and I'm immediately turned off because there are hundreds others like them, but they might actually be offering something I need, and even then I don't want to talk to them.
Yeah.
And And it's purely because I don't know them and I don't trust them yet. And I think if you can be patient and be present and somehow show value first, that I think is a harder game to play, but it is the right one.
Absolutely. I think what happens is just my take. A lot of people get impatient, right? They want results today. But what you're essentially doing with tools like SalesRobot or growing your network or putting a post or congratulating people on happy birthday is that you're actually playing the long game. So there is a time element to it, right? It's not like, the connections you made last year, like they'll turn into revenue today. May not, right? May convert to revenue in 10 years, but may not. So that's where you have to ultimately think longer term, which is very hard for a lot of people to do. So that's why I think a lot of people just resort to hard selling, not
Yeah.
thinking about their reputation. But the most valuable thing you build in your career is your reputation. So you have to think of that.
Really, really agree. And that's why I'm very nervous around sort of cold emails. Like, I know you've got to do it sometimes, and there are times where you should be doing it, but I do think the reputational, because you could look at statistics, and I'm a data guy, so I can say this. Like, you could look at stats and say, hey, I got 1 in 1,000, but out of the other 999, how many hate you now? So it's kind of what I think about. So I do think you've got to weigh what is your brand about. Now, if you're a product business or something that is a quick sell, I get it. I think that makes a lot of sense. But in our line of business, we're a trust-based business. You need to know that you can work with us, and we need to walk on a journey with you. So that is a slower kind of pace type of business that requires proof. And I think what we've got to what we're looking to do, and maybe this is also a tactic that I'm exploring that I haven't proven yet, but I believe has merit, is essentially using a tool like SalesRobot to collect your pool of your audience, essentially, so that your audience is available, that you can reach out to them. And then the follow-up would be to start serving value to them. So now to say, okay, right, now that we've got this pool of people, what can we share that they might find interesting or valuable? I know, for example, you sometimes share videos about how you can use SalesRobot, and I've watched some of your clips about things you can do. And I think that's great, because now I'm getting benefit from how I can use the tool, and I'm much more likely to actually use the product as a result. So I think it's like gather your audience, then essentially serve them, and then the idea is that then ideally they come back to you.
Yeah, I mean, that's why we're doing this series as well, because it sparks a lot of ideas, right? We give these breakdowns of the customer of the week interviews, and we send that out to our audience. And we've seen that people come back and use it more because they now are fresh, full of ideas and different tactics and different, so they're just more excited. So for me, it's all about getting that excitement, getting people to believe that this is a valuable tool, which it is. I know it is, it is, but a lot of people, they have to be told that, hey, this is great, you can use it, you can do a lot of great things with it. But
I say this not to promote you in any way, but I really feel the tool is undervalued almost. Sometimes in my own team, I feel that there's so much potential in what you can do, because essentially it's LinkedIn automated for you.
Yeah.
What I struggle with sometimes, and this is maybe why a series like this is good as well, is just what could you do? So it's the idea and the imagination around how do you serve your audience and what would be valuable and what's maybe a bit more original than what others are doing. Because we kind of can settle into a pattern of like, let's just do A, B, C, D and then hope for a response. But I think if you're original and you maybe have a bit of your own content and you're sharing this tool is such a great enabler. And what we're thinking about now is really customer journeys. So how to build for our particular customer personas, how to build journeys for them, and SalesRobot will be part of that, where we can send messages at certain times to really serve value, not actually to so much for the responses, but to be top of mind. And then the idea would be to collect ideally the statistics around it and see what works and what do people actually read and what do they open, things like that. And then keep doing that until we've got a great sort of sales funnel working.
Awesome. Yeah, those are two great use cases. So I heard you talk about almost like content repurposing, like sending, using SalesRobot almost as a vehicle for delivering value added content to a certain audience. that is already a part of your network, and then using SalesRobot as a part of a bigger customer life cycle marketing. So both great ideas. I mean, I'm just taking down notes, and we will make more content out of this as well. Okay, final question. So what was the follow up that you sent? You sent thank you for connecting first name, and then yeah. So talk me
Yeah,
through.
I'm just thanking them that we're now connected, and I sometimes get messages on this where they then write back and go, "Yeah, no, really great that we're connected," and sometimes add a question saying, "What do you need from me?" Or "How can I help you?" That type of thing sometimes comes out of it. So I would say sometimes I found this a bit cheesy, like how I wrote this. When I sort of wrote their name, but I do think ending with just a hey, it's great that we're now connected, and automating that piece is important, so that they know they didn't just connect to someone and never hear from them again. And the more personal, and actually the shorter you can make this, the better. So it doesn't need to be very long. It just needs to be great that we're now connected. And as I would also say, one more tip is try to make it as natural as you would. I maybe made it a bit too formal here, but I would say great that we're now connected. Look forward to catching up soon, or something like that would be most natural.
Yeah. Again, what I love about all of your texts is like the readability score is through the roof on all of this. So I
Right.
love that. Yeah. Awesome. Now let's get into your journey. What are some of the mistakes you made when you first started doing cold outreach?
I think, well, first I rented an agency, and I think the first mistake I made was not being involved enough. So I think hoping a lead generator or someone would just do it for me, and they would ask me questions, I would answer them. And then I got all these emails back from annoyed individuals going, "How did you get my details?" Or this agency made spelling errors. I didn't see the actual copy, or it's like, "Dear company name," not actual company name. Little things like that they sometimes got wrong. So that had to go, obviously. So that was probably the first mistake I made. I think maybe the mistake I sometimes still make is not thinking through the entire journey well enough. Like, so what? So what is, you've done this, and then even though these campaigns went really well, what I think would have been even better would be to already have thought of the value content you're going to start serving. So once you finish the one, can you connect it to a new pipe? Now all those prospects that you have connected. And that's just honestly a bit of inexperience and learning as you go. And then I would say potentially being too artificial in some of the messages that we sometimes send. So it's great to add the company name of the person that you're talking to, but sometimes they are part of like some sort of community or some sort of industry type body. So it's a really long company name that comes back and it says, "Great to see what you're doing," and it's obvious that you would never say anything like that. So you've got to just watch out for that in maybe the group that so I would say check your leads, because I would just gather them and not check what company or anything they're being sent to. But then honestly, I think when you use technology like this and you use it wisely, use the guides that you're giving, you can't really, like, I would say the other error would probably be being a bit too hesitant to do it. So being too shy to actually set up the campaign and run it. And I still do today, where I go, "Oh, no, I've got to think this through perfectly and overthink it and spend ages on refining it." Where really you should be testing it and running and then seeing what you're getting back. So I would say underutilizing connections and network, and you've got all this wealth of data and technology at your disposal. So just try to be natural, use it, and don't overthink it too much, and don't try to be too clever. And just keep it simple in how you're doing it. Natural. I love Alex Hormozy stuff and how he talks about just offering value and just being straight with people. So I would say listen to him in terms of how to reach out to people.
Absolutely. So those are some of the mistakes I've made as well. So I think it's just a journey, right? You go through and every day you learn a little bit more. So
yeah. I mean, as a new founder, when I just started the company, initially, you just have no idea, and so you're very sort of direct. First, I did everything manually, and then you go, "Okay, we need to be a bit smarter than that." And then you try to overcomplicate, where you go, it's, like this long chain, and then like it's got to be 7 stages, 8 stages of trying to reach out and what are you going to send and across different platforms. And then I think you learn a lot. I've been lucky to work with some quite good marketing people where I've seen you pick up along the way the experience that you're talking about. So you kind of pick up what works and what doesn't work, but also just being yourself. I think ultimately at the end of the day, right? Because you try to be a persona or you try to be something you're not really. And it's going to work a lot better when you're authentic and you're being true to your brand, true to who you are and the kind of people you want to be connected with. I think sometimes we just try to be too smart or too intelligent and we could just literally go with what's natural and, who do you think would like this? And then speak that.
Yeah. I mean, what I often think back to when I get stuck in these cycles is that I think of ultimately SalesRobot is just an amplification tool, right? You have the core message and it's amplifying it to 1,000 people. So what I tend to think of, and I do this often sometimes when I'm writing a message, like I'll read the message and record myself, sort of saying it to my phone, right? And then I'll play the voice note back to myself and say, is this something I'd say to somebody at a network?
I like that. I like that.
Would I do that? If no, needs to change. If yes, good to go. Right?
Great.
It's a simple hack, but you'd be surprised. No, I would not say that to somebody I meet at a bar, right? So that's the sort of smell test essentially. At the end of the day, there's somebody on the other end of the screen on LinkedIn looking at it. They're a person as well, just like you. So just talk to them, right? It's as simple as that.
Yeah. I really like that one. I'll keep that one. I listened to this. There's this famous Australian speaking coach on YouTube. I think I went on Steve Bartlett's podcast recently as well, and he talks about if you want to improve your communication, you should record yourself and then listen to it the next day, but then watch it and then hear your intonation. And I think the other one was like watch yourself, like without sound. And then the final one I think was listen to the words you're saying as the third one. So those sort of 3 stages. So I really like what you just said there. Sounds very similar, like aligned with what this guy would say. And I'll do that going forward.
Because I told this to my co-founder and he was like, okay, we got to make this a feature in SalesRobot where they can record themselves reading the message and see if it's...
Oh, that's really cool. Yeah. I like that.
So, yeah, that's one of the things in our backlog. Awesome. So on to my final question then. What are some of the things that you're excited about trying to improve your cold outreach further?
I would say... really, I kind of touched upon it already, but I would say really being just more persona driven. I've not used, I know you've got this AI feature that kind of writes the campaign for you. I'd like to experiment with that a lot. We have a little bit of experiment. I'd like to try it again because I know you do updates on the tool all the time. So probably try that again. But really, it's going to be more process driven, which is around being much smarter about niching down on a particular industry, being very targeted in now within this pool that we have. How do we reach out and kind of build a customer journey around it? And if I can use this opportunity to make a request, I think integration with other tools is probably something I haven't really explored. It might already be possible, but I don't think, at least I found it logical to do yet. But I think I would love to integrate it as part of a series of automation, because you've got all these AI agents and things coming up now. So what I want to be able to do is saying, maybe they've been on our website, and then if I could, like maybe if I've sent them from connected to them on SalesRobot and they've come to our website, and if I can somehow get that prospect into a CRM system, that would be amazing.
Yeah, you can actually do that. We have that capability already. We don't do a good job of marketing it. So that's the input I'll take.
That's the input. All right. Okay. Well, now you've for sure opened the door to something I do want to try, because that, for me, is what we don't do well, is we do this in isolation and we don't connect it to a broader process. And if we can somehow just chain it together where we now know this person is interested and we learn a bit more, obviously I can see the response rate, but can I see what they've done afterwards, or can I store them then in HubSpot? Then amazing.
Awesome. So that is all the time we have today, Tom. If people want to find you online, where can they find you?
Well, they can come to our website, decisioncrew.com. We're also running a YouTube channel, Decision Crew. So I'm publishing CEO stories. Now you'll see a couple coming in the next few weeks. So definitely follow that. And we're just on LinkedIn. So we publish a lot of content on there. So if you want to know anything in the data analytics space, we try to post value on there. And then those are probably the key channels.
Awesome, Tom. Thanks for making the time. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah, it's nice meeting you. And thanks for building an awesome product.